Okies. We're going to give folks a couple minutes to get here. Some folks are still tuning in, it looks like. Awesome. I'm scrolling through your faces and just being excited to see you all. Hello, hello. Getting here. This is great. For those of you watching the recording, you can go ahead probably 2 minutes. I like to give folks an opportunity to get here. Hi, everybody. Oh, good, Debbie's here. Yay. I know some folks may have tried to get on our call last month, and so I want to apologize if any of you were trying to get in to the call and were unable to do so. I was having some tech issues. You know, it happens sometimes. So I'm putting the chat over here so I can see you all. Good. Oh, no worry about multitasking. That sounds very much like a Y person to me. There you are on the thing, bottom there. Great. For those of you who are just connecting right now, welcome. Glad you're here. Going to give folks another minute to get here. So glad you're here. This is always a highlight of my month, a great way to start the month, actually. And give folks just another moment to get here. While we're waiting, I also, Ellie and I were just talking right before we got started and thinking about maybe continuing this series. And so if so, I'm curious if there are topics that you have an interest in hearing about. So if there are, please throw those in the chat at any point. So if you think of something, you're like, hey, I'd like to learn a little more about X, Y, or Z. I'm thinking next month about focusing on grief. So just to throw that out there, if that sounds like that resonates with you, give me a yes or a no, or add any other things in the chat that you'd be interested in. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get started now. We may have folks join us as we go, but I want to honor your time today. I am very excited that you're here, as I said. This is caring for ourselves as we care for others. And today we're going to be focusing on hope and hopeful actions. I was telling Ellie before we got started that this was a really helpful one for me, even just preparing for it. Gave me some things to think about. And some practices to consider. So I'm hoping that this is a helpful one for you all as well. I want to thank the Mountain Midwest Hub for supporting this and making this possible. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Sarah Cole. Also want to thank my partner and co-facilitator of the mental health innovation team, Kesia Roberts, who is here and always a very awesome person. So there she is. So thank you for being always my wing person. Appreciate you being here. So for those of you who maybe don't know me, I'm Sarah Johnson and I am the Joy Labs. I am a Y person working as a consultant and a community partner with YUSA. I was with a local Y for many, many years, both as a community partner and as a full-time Y person. So just here as a mental health provider who is launching what I call the mental health revolution, which is simply making sure that we all know how to care for ourselves and each other effectively. And so a part of that is this series. My intention with us today is to offer time and space so that we can just pause and learn together. Perhaps I will offer nothing that is new to you today, and that's totally okay. My hope is that, and maybe there is that, you know, something to consider a little bit differently, but my hope is that in any case, you take this as time for yourself. So I would invite you to try to turn off devices and put email away and all of that if you can. If you can't, if this is just a simple time for you to be quote unquote invisible and catch up on your email. If you need to do that, that's fine too, of course. This is your time, and I'm hoping that it's a reset and refresh for you. My non-intention, I always make sure to tell people this: I didn't just trick you into group therapy. I am a licensed professional counselor. However, this is not therapy. I also like to say that community is medicine, and my hope is that this feels like community for you, and in that case is, again, hopefully something that feels refreshing. Our time together today is quick. We have till 2:30 Central, so a little under half an hour. We're gonna do a little bit of arrival. We're gonna focus on hope, some things to think about, some strategies to help cultivate and nurture hope. And then my hope is to give you a little bit of time to think about how to take this with you. So, arriving. You are here on the call, but are you? Are you really? Let's see if I can give you an opportunity to truly arrive, mind, body, spirit. So, like anything I ever offer you, this is an invitation. So with any invitation, you can always say no, thank you. I'm just going to give you an opportunity to maybe try a couple of things, grounding practices, and then a posture that kind of serves as a metaphor for our time together today. If you'd prefer to get a drink of water, stand up, shake it off, do a dance party, stare out the window, all of that's totally fine and up to you. So I am going to invite you, if it feels right to you, to find a posture that feels restful, balanced, grounded, and brings you some ease. And so if that means closing your eyes, great. If that means just softening the muscles around your eyes, watching the screen, or finding a spot in front of you to settle your gaze, that all works. I find it helpful to actually kind of wiggle into and ground down into my seat. So pressing feet into the floor, if that's available to you, if that feels right, that can be a sense of reminder that the ground is below you, that you are actually on this earth, of this earth. Wiggling into my seat helps me remember that I'm actually being supported in this moment, and that I can actually relax my posture into it and actually find a moment of rest instead of being uptight and like, leaning forward, my shoulders up. I can actually lean back and into that support. So I invite you to maybe experiment with that. I also find it helpful to find a sense of balance in my posture. If I want my mind to be balanced, my mind is contained in my body. So finding balance and groundedness and ease in my body can help cultivate that in my mind as well. It can be helpful to ground yourself in your breath. So I invite you to imagine that your breath is something that can center you and pull you in. So as you breathe in, you're breathing in hope. As you breathe out, you're able to let go of that which pulls you down. Breathing in hope, out suffering. Breathing in hope. And one last exhale, the things that tax you. One last invitation. I'm going to invite you to actually bring your hands together in front of you and imagine that you're holding a baby bird. You're wanting to protect that baby bird. So how might you hold your hand gently? You might even hold the other hand over it, right? Just gently. We don't want to squeeze, right? We want to just allow for that hope to settle there, that baby bird to settle there in our hand, to allow some space for it while we protect it. I want you to imagine that that baby bird symbolizes hope, and that we can't hold too tightly to it. We can't just only see the positive, but we actually have to have some space for all things. So that space around that baby bird are the things that we maybe struggle with. So allow that baby bird, that space, honor that baby bird. Imagine sending some love to that baby bird, some attention. And allow yourself to imagine you can actually tuck that baby bird away in a chamber in your heart. I invite you to bring your attention back to your breath. Maybe a deep breath in and out. And we're going to begin bringing our attention back to our content. And so maybe transitioning by stretching, maybe a wiggle, maybe gently blinking your eyes open will be helpful for you, but bringing your attention back here when you're ready. Welcome back. I am going to invite you, as I begin sharing some content with you here, just invite you, if you would like, to share in the chat anything you noticed during that arrival, that grounding process. There's no right or wrong, so feel free to share that in the chat. Part of a helpful mindful practice is to notice and then reflect. Notice and reflect. So if there's something you'd like to share, please share that in the chat. So some of you are maybe familiar with the community care model that we are talking about a lot here at the Y. Community care model being something that really helps us remember that we all have a role in supporting mental health. Mental health is just how we think, feel, and act. We all have it. So it's important that we care for our own mental health as we care for others. And one of the best ways that we can help teach other people how to care for their mental health is by embodying self-care practices. So our work together today, our time together today, is really part of caring for others. It's not a separate thing that you do on the side or as a bonus or after everything else is done. It is part of what makes you able to care for others effectively and sustainably. So as we talk today about hope, what is hope? So I've given a lot of thought to this. There's a lot of different things we can think about. Hope is a feeling, an emotion, but it's way more than that. It's our ability to see possibilities, even when things are difficult. We don't need hope when things are great, right? There's no need for it. But when things are difficult, that is when we need hope. So this is by contrast of our something that's called toxic positivity. Not sure if you've heard of this before. Toxic positivity. So, you know, we talk about fake it till you make it. Sometimes that can be a helpful strategy. Fake it till you make it is kind of behaving the way that you want things to be. And that's actually a strategy I'm going to kind of talk about today. Toxic positivity in a fake it till you make it kind of way is believing or acting as though we've got to always be positive. And it's well-intentioned, very well-intentioned. We want people to not suffer. And so sometimes we use toxic positivity as an attempt to be an antidote to suffering or struggling. And unfortunately, it can be very unintentionally invalidating, meaning I'm meaning well, I'm trying to help you feel better, but I'm actually having the opposite effect. I'm actually, because I'm not acknowledging or accepting your reality as sometimes things just suck, and that's okay to acknowledge. If I don't acknowledge that, I'm trying to always bright side you, I might be closing the door for people wanting to talk to me. So all of that can also lead to a negative impact on mental health, which is not the intention. When somebody's trying to help you feel better, we're trying to help your mental health. And so really important for us to know, especially at the why, when I think about why voice as optimistic, we need to hold hope gently and firmly, right? We need to have that baby bird and be able to acknowledge reality as it is, while also remaining hopeful. So we're going to talk about how we can do that. So some examples, really common examples of toxic positivity are signs that say good vibes only, which again, this is a really well-intentioned phrase, right? We want to keep things constructive, but that may unintentionally mean that people who are not feeling good vibes or are feeling critical or feeling, that they're struggling may not feel like they can say it, or can create a culture where people don't feel like they can talk about things. Don't be so negative is another option, or another example of that. Failure is not an option. Failure is how we grow and how we learn. And so we actually, a growth mindset would say, really embracing failure is a really important piece and part of becoming stronger, becoming more resilient, and learning things. The at least is an attempt to help us focus on what we're grateful for. But unfortunately, again, if I say, well, if you lost your job, but at least you still have your house, that again can be unintentionally invalidating of the fact that something really difficult just happened. I just lost my job, right? Or I lost a partner, or I lost whatever it is. Another example of toxic positivity that I don't always think about is, and can sometimes be to blame for, is putting on the brave face. Like, I can't show my vulnerability. That sense of I always have to be strong or always have to be positive, A, is not good for my own mental health, but B, is again communicating to others that it's not okay to talk about the difficult stuff. It's not okay to talk about the more challenging emotions or stressful emotions like sadness, embarrassment, anxiety, right? So thinking about how might we be putting out toxic positivity in the world as a way that is well-intentioned but has some unintended consequences. Viktor Frankl was a truly tremendous human. He was a survivor of the Holocaust. He was a psychiatrist and wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning that is truly a phenomenal piece of work. And he coined the phrase tragic optimism. He talks about that as our ability to maintain hope and find meaning in life despite the inescapable pain, loss, and suffering. So what he's describing here is nobody gets through life without some kind of suffering. We all have times that we struggle, and that's just a part of being alive. Tragic optimism is our ability to see all of it, good, bad, and neutral. When we are hopeful, we can see all of those different pieces. When we are struggling, sometimes we struggle to also experience the feelings of hope. And so ways that we can actually cultivate hope when we most need it, when we're struggling, there's a few different things here that I want to start to share with you. Acknowledging, honoring, and experiencing our emotions. So instead of pushing them away, trying to put on that brave face, that strength, that positivity, acknowledge, notice when you are feeling sad, notice when you're struggling to find your hope. That's important information for you. And so reflecting on what that information is can help us determine what we may need. What we may need is a good cry, a conversation with our best friend. We may need to shake it off, have it like move our body, help metabolize trauma or adversity. We may need to talk to a therapist. We may need an antidepressant or change in our nutrition, or things that can help help our system reset. Finding meaning. So again, finding meaning isn't the same thing as saying, well, everything happens for a reason, which it may or may not be true, and can be another example of well-intentioned but toxic positivity. Finding meaning is one of the best ways that we can have what's called post-traumatic growth, meaning growth after going through a difficult trauma. Meaning, making meaning of that experience. For example, having lost someone to suicide can be a terrible trauma. Finding meaning in that loss might mean helping other people by doing suicide prevention trainings with others, or being a peer mentor to others who have lost someone to suicide. So finding meaning, making meaning out of that trauma is something that can help us build and cultivate and nurture hope. Important for anything in life, accepting support and seeking help can be really, really helpful in nurturing that hope. And again, that might be through your partner, through your coworkers, through your community, through your faith. That might also be seeking mental health support through a formal support like a counselor. Setting boundaries, taking breaks, and resting can be a really important thing in cultivating hope. So I don't know what your media and your news input is, but I find that sometimes I just need to turn it off. And if the news will still be there, it doesn't mean I'm walking away from the news of the world, but I maybe don't need to listen to 3 hours of it in a day, right? I maybe can listen to 15 minutes of NPR, get the little news, and take a break from the rest until I have a little more capacity and feel a little more resourced to watch them more. Finally, my favorite, I like calling it seeking soul fuel. Seek soul fuel. Soul fuel are the things that make you feel alive and help you see hopeful things. So that might mean asking yourself a number of things. So A, how can you honor your feelings of struggle? Where do you see evidence of good? That's the soul fuel stuff, right? So when I see kids in the daycare center, right? That might be evidence of good. And I'm going to invite you right now in the chat. Where do you see evidence of good? Throw that in there. I'd love to hear that. There's all kinds of places where you can see good or find the soul fuel. Where can you take a break or get some rest? Okay, where can you set some boundaries? Maybe give yourself a little bit of time. Thinking about what actions have helped you feel hopeful in the past. Thinking about one hopeful action that you can take today. What is one action that you can take? And who would love to support you right now? We know that it feels good to help other people, which means there's a lot of people out in your life who probably would love and would feel great helping you. So, holding hope like that baby bird, gently and firmly. A couple of things to leave you with here. So therapist talk 101, feelings aren't facts. If you haven't heard that before, let me tell you, they're not. So for example, I can feel like crap. It doesn't mean I am crap, right? But sometimes in our big feelings, we mistake that and we behave as if feelings are facts. So I tell you that importantly because the feeling of hope, if I'm feeling hopeless, and I allow that to influence my actions, my behaviors, and I behave as if things are hopeless, well, I'm kind of sewing things up for a hopeless outcome. Whereas if I am feeling hopeless and yet in spite of that, I behave, I take action in a hopeful direction, well, I might be right that things are hopeless, but I've got a much greater chance of things turning out in a hopeful way by behaving hopefully. I want to throw this out there. This is really powerful thought for me, which is that the flip side of anger is hope. So if you are somebody who's struggling to connect with your feelings of hope, but you are noticing you've got feelings of anger, that's a good sign because we get angry when things are unjust and we know that they can be different. We get angry when we feel like something is wrong and it can be different, right? Which means we've got hope in there. So if you can use your anger to latch onto and find way to your hope, I encourage you to do that. Anger is a really helpful and informative emotion. All of this to say, hope, yes, is a feeling, but it's also an action. This is my favorite strategy. So you don't feel hopeful, do it anyway. And that kind of feels like, okay, right? But I call it the do it anyway strategy, meaning I wake up, I don't feel like exercising, but if I do it anyway, most of the time, I'm really glad that I did. And by the time I'm done, I'm like, okay, I was right. I should do it. Hope is the same kind of thing. When we do actions that help us move towards hope, it actually helps cultivate hope. In the same way that I don't feel like exercising, but I do it anyway. I build motivation by doing the thing. Hope is the same thing. So if we can embrace that, do it anyway. I don't feel hopeful, but I'm going to take hopeful actions. I might still have a hopeless outcome, but more likely not, because I'm doing things to move towards hope. Most important thing of all time, especially if you are experiencing some feelings of hopelessness, really, really, really want to encourage you, urge you to ask for help. Hope is a really important thing to have, and hopelessness can be a sign of depression. It can be something that puts us at risk for suicide, which is an outcome that we don't want. We just don't want that. There are so many things we can do to help people. There are so many things we can do to help people, even if you don't feel like it, even if you've tried things in the past and you're just not real hopeful that things can change. Please believe me, trust me, things can change. There's so many things we can do. So please, if you are struggling with your hope, consider talking to someone. That might be your doctor. It could be going to the employee assistance program or therapist. It can be starting with a spiritual leader or a friend, a neighbor, someone you know who's maybe gone through difficult things and made it out. Please ask for help. There's a couple of national resources, the Hope Line. You can text HOPE to 741-741 any time of the day or night. You can also call the National Suicide Hotline at 988. So just dialing 988 will get you someone who's trained and caring, and there intentionally to provide support. Finally, I wanted to leave you with a poem about allowing for all of our emotions. The Guest House by Rumi. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So while you may not be happy about those guests at the moment, that's okay. Honor that sadness, that struggle, and allow for some space for that struggle to have a meaning and tell you about what you need. And please, please, please relax into your community. Allow them to help care for you so that you can help care for them. So thank you for sharing. I'm checking the chat here. You shared things that suggest a reason for hope, and I love that. Your takeaways for today: remember that baby bird. Know that there's things we can do to help cultivate our hope, and many things we can do to get through things that times when we're struggling. Please, 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 please ask for help when you need it. Know that there are hopefully takeaways that I'm going to invite you to take some time to reflect on those things, maybe lean on or reflect with somebody. If you're interested, the recording of this will be on link. Ellie can put the slide deck in the chat for you. We'll also include that on the mental health page on link for you. We also would love to know what you think. There's a 3-minute survey, so if you're willing to do that for me, that's really helpful for me. If there's things that you want to make sure that we cover, definitely share that with me. And finally, I just want to say thank you for all that you do. Thank you for taking this moment to take care of yourself as you care for others. I appreciate you. I'm going to stop sharing now. Oops, are going to try to stop sharing. Yep, there we go. So that I can see your faces. If you would like to, I always love it when people show their face and unmute and say goodbye as you go. But thank you for your time here today. I appreciate you. Thank you.